Hello guys, let's go look new Reddit story.
What's a secret you found out that you were 100% not supposed to know? The secret I found that I wasn't supposed to know. I never meant to stumble across the truth. In fact, I was trying to avoid it. But somehow, the universe had a different plan for me. And now, I can't shake the feeling that I know something I was never supposed to. What do you do when you find out a secret that changes everything, but you're the last person who should know about it? So here's how it all went down. A few months ago, I was doing my usual routine, scrolling through old family photos, playing games on my phone, mindlessly reading through Reddit posts. You know, just wasting time. But it was that very kind of aimless scrolling that led me to it. My family isn't particularly close-knit. We have our holidays, sure, and the occasional family dinner, but we're all living separate lives. My mom and dad divorced when I was 16, and since then, we've sort of grown apart. Sure, I've kept in touch with my dad, the occasional phone call or dinner at his place, but it's mostly surface level. We don't talk about anything that would require more than a few minutes of conversation. My mom, on the other hand, was always the one I could talk to about anything. She's a good listener, even if sometimes she's a bit too emotionally involved. That's why it was so strange when I discovered that my mom was hiding something from me. Something really big. It all started when I was at my mom's house for the weekend. She was out running errands, and I was just lounging around in the living room. I don't even remember what I was looking for, but I ended up rifling through one of her drawers. It was one of those classic, I wonder what's in here moments, you know? We've all done it at some point. I found a small, old-fashioned key. It wasn't anything special at first glance, just a plain brass key with no distinguishing marks or design. I don't even know why I kept it in my hand, but for some reason, I felt like I needed to keep looking. And that's when I found the envelope. The envelope was wedged behind some old birthday cards. It was yellowed with age, and the paper felt fragile to the touch. I pulled it out and saw that it was addressed to my mom. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the name on the envelope was clear. To Lucy, from Michael. I didn't recognize the name. I had no idea who Michael was. My mind started racing, and I wondered why I had never heard of this person before. I opened the envelope, curiosity gnawing at me. Inside was a letter written in neat, precise handwriting. I wasn't prepared for what I read. The letter began innocuously enough, with Michael professing his admiration for my mom. He spoke of a deep connection, of long nights spent talking, of memories they shared. But as I read further, the tone shifted. Michael confessed something that completely blindsided me. He was my father's brother. I froze. My heart started racing. My dad's brother? I had never heard anything about my father having a brother. In fact, I had always assumed my dad was an only child. I immediately started rereading the letter, but it wasn't just some offhand mention. Michael explained that he had been in love with my mom for years, even before she and my dad got together. The letter then revealed a bombshell. My mom had been with Michael before she met my dad. The letter continued, detailing the secret relationship they had, one that lasted even after my parents' marriage. Michael wrote about how he had kept a distance, respecting my dad's role in my mom's life, but he couldn't stay away completely. He mentioned that, at one point, they had even considered running away together. The letter ended with a plea for my mom to meet him one last time. I had so many thoughts swirling in my mind. Why had I never heard of this before? Why was my mom hiding this from me? And why the hell had I never even suspected that my dad had a brother? I quickly shoved the letter back into the envelope and stuffed it back into the drawer. My mind was reeling. I didn't know if I should confront my mom about it, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't. Not yet, at least. I had to be sure. There had to be more to this story, something that would explain why no one had ever talked about Michael. A few days later, when I was back at home, I couldn't stop thinking about the letter. I decided to do some digging. I wasn't going to confront my mom without knowing the full story, so I took to the internet. I looked for anything related to Michael, my dad's brother, the man I didn't even know existed. And that's when I found something. I typed in my father's name and brother, and to my shock, I found a forum post that mentioned a Michael, my dad's brother. The forum post was old, but it mentioned something about Michael disappearing years ago. It said that Michael had left town and was never heard from again. There was speculation about why, but nothing concrete. It was as if Michael had just vanished. I dug deeper, trying to find more, but every link I followed led to dead ends. No one seemed to know where Michael had gone, or if he was even still alive. It was as though he had been erased from the family's history. But then, I found something truly unsettling. A newspaper article from the late 90s, a time when my parents were still together, mentioned an accident. A car accident. The article was about a man named Michael who had been in a hit and run. The report didn't say much, but it mentioned that the family was in shock and the investigation was ongoing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was uncovering something I wasn't supposed to know. The more I pieced together, the more I realized I was standing at the edge of something much bigger than just a hidden relationship. Something about my entire family was off, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know more. But I had to know. There was no going back. This was only the beginning of what would become a twisted journey into my family's hidden past. It turned out that the letter was just the tip of the iceberg. The more I uncovered, the more I realized I wasn't just dealing with a love story that went wrong. There were secrets here that could shatter everything I thought I knew about my mom, my dad, and myself. But I couldn't stop. I had already seen too much. Would I confront my mom? Would I finally learn the truth about Michael and my dad? The answer wasn't clear yet. But I knew this. I was in way too deep now. And I wasn't going to rest until I found out what happened all those years ago. So, yeah, that's how I stumbled across a secret I wasn't supposed to know. I wish I could say that after finding out about Michael, I just let it go. That I went back to my normal life, and everything was fine. But that's not what happened. The more I thought about the letter, the more it gnawed at me. I couldn't stop imagining the kind of life my mom must have led before I came along, or what it meant that my dad had a brother, one I had never heard of. After a few sleepless nights, I decided I needed to talk to my mom. But I didn't know how to bring it up. How do you tell someone you've discovered a family secret they've been hiding for decades? How do you confront the person who raised you about something so personal, so painful? I was scared. Honestly, I didn't know if I was ready for the truth. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. A week after I found the letter, I decided to visit my mom again. This time, I wasn't just coming to chat and hang out. I had a purpose. I needed answers. When I got to her house, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee like nothing had changed. She looked up and smiled at me, but I could tell something was different. Her eyes were more guarded, like she knew I was about to ask a question she didn't want to answer. I tried to act normal, chatting about random things at first, the weather, how my week had gone, anything to delay the inevitable. But inside, I was boiling over. I could feel the weight of the secret pressing down on me. I had to ask, "Mom," I started, "I found something in one of your drawers last time I was here." Her face went pale. I knew instantly that she knew what I was talking about. She put her coffee cup down slowly and looked me straight in the eyes. "What did you find?" she asked, her voice steady, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. I took a deep breath. A letter. From someone named Michael. She didn't flinch, but I could tell that her mind was racing. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the longest time, she just stared at me. Finally, she sighed deeply and leaned back in her chair. "Where did you find it?" she asked softly, her voice a mixture of exhaustion and resignation. I told her about the envelope, about how I'd read the letter, and how I had done some digging online. I wasn't trying to accuse her, I just wanted answers. But as I spoke, I could see her face changing. Her expression went from one of shock to something deeper. Regret, maybe? Shame? It was hard to read, but I could tell I was getting closer to something she had buried long ago. "Mom, who's Michael? And why didn't you ever tell me about him?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. I hated how vulnerable I felt in that moment. She closed her eyes for a moment, as though she was searching for the right words. When she opened them again, they were filled with a kind of quiet sadness I hadn't seen in years. "Michael," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "Michael is your father's brother. He's not just some random man from my past. He was part of our family. But I kept him from you because I thought it would be better that way." I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what she was saying. "So, you had an affair with him? While you were with Dad?" She flinched at my words, and I immediately regretted phrasing it like that. But she didn't deny it. Instead, she nodded slowly. "Yes," she said softly, her voice filled with pain. "I had an affair with Michael before I met your father. But it wasn't just that. Michael and I were in love with each other, but it was complicated. We had a connection that I couldn't shake." I sat down across from her, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. "But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't Dad ever mention him?" She wiped a tear from her cheek, something I hadn't seen in years. Because Michael wasn't supposed to be part of your life. After everything happened with your father, and after Michael left, I didn't want to bring it all up. I didn't want you to grow up with the complications of knowing about him. Your father never knew about the affair. No one did. Michael disappeared after that. I thought it was for the best, to just leave it all in the past. I leaned back in my chair, digesting her words. It felt like I had been punched in the stomach. The idea of my dad having a brother, someone he'd never spoken about, someone who had been in love with my mom before he even came into the picture, was almost too much to process. But it wasn't just the affair that was unsettling. It was the way my mom had kept everything so quiet. She had kept Michael's existence and his disappearance hidden from me for my whole life. So where is he now? I asked, unable to shake the question. What happened to him? Her face grew even more somber. I don't know. After the accident, he just left. I never heard from him again. I've tried to find him, but it's like he vanished off the face of the earth. He didn't want to be found, and I respected that. I could tell there was more she wasn't saying, but I didn't push it. Not yet. The truth was already overwhelming enough. But one thing was clear. Michael's disappearance wasn't an accident. There was something darker at play here, something that went beyond just a family secret. I left my mom's house that day with more questions than answers. But I also realized something important. I wasn't done digging. There was more to this story, more to Michael's disappearance, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how much it hurt. And that's where things got even more complicated.